What's going on YouTube, and welcome back. We're talking about how to budget your money effectively and the top things that you can do to make sure that you stay on track for your budget. Make sure you also subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bells for when I post every Friday on helpful bits, tips, and tricks on managing your finances. You've got to get into the habit and the mindset of thinking ahead when you make your budget. If this month already began for you, then don't plan on making a budget for this month. Focus all your time and effort on making a budget for next month and planning out what you'll need in advance, so that way you're not caught off guard with what expenses need to be covered in that budget. Once you get 1 month's budget correct, you can adjust it accordingly for each month after. But the most important part is that's making sure you at least get 1 month correct and 1 month started. Also, don't be afraid to revise your budget. You're going to have to in some months make updates or certain changes, so just be open to it and don't beat yourself up too much by not being able to stick to a budget as months go by. Remember that it takes planning and careful consideration to get this right, and you're going to have to reiterate over this a couple of times to get the budget absolutely correct. Make sure you're tracking all of your expenses as well. Now, this one's going to take some practice, but if you can get this done and do it successfully, you're going to have a much easier time making budgets from here on out. You got to add up all your expenses like food, rent, mortgages, whatever you're paying month to month. Also add in common expenses for things like restaurants and clothing and things of that nature. Now, if you're having trouble figuring this type of stuff out, check your old bank account statements and see what you've been spending money on the last couple months and go based on what you've been doing there. If you can successfully do this, you can finally start taking charge of your money instead of your money taking charge of you. Now, I'd say one of the hardest parts about doing a budget in general is just being real and honest with yourself. Don't try to lie to yourself or overpad your budget to make it seem like you're doing the right thing, because it helps nobody if you're not being real with yourself. Make sure you account for places that you overspend so you can figure out where you've got to cut things back on. Any kind of guilty pleasure you have, you must add it on the list. No matter what it is, you've got to take account for it if you're spending money on it. Once you have all of this, you can finally set a realistic budget. Remember that there's no point in even setting a budget if you can't stick to it. So remember to set something realistic based on your expenses right now. If something's going over budget and you see this consistently happening each month, then make sure you evaluate whether or not you need to increase that budget or lower somewhere else and cut back on spending. So you've got to figure out if entertainment is worth more than food to you, depending on your needs. Your budget will change over time as the years go by, so make sure you keep it flexible, because you will be decreasing or increasing certain things depending on what your needs are at the time. Making a budget is a learning process, and it's not going to be something that you get the first time around that you do it. And a good note to add is make sure you add in a catch-all expense, which is just a miscellaneous category. This category will contain different things that you weren't expecting on planning to pay, but you have to pay it in the first place. So make sure that if all else fails, you still have a category to catch something that's still unexpected. These could be in the form of an emergency or something that took a higher priority that had to be paid immediately. For example, if you're throwing a party for a friend or a relative and you've got to pitch in $10 for the cakes, balloons, or whatever else, this isn't necessarily an expense for you to add in your budget. This will fall under the miscellaneous category, but you can revise it later on whether or not you need a friend or family expense on your budget sheet to be able to correctly account for those type of expenses. Now, there are a couple budgets you can start off with if you're looking to start making a plan today. One of the most popular being the 50-30-20 budget. This only requires you to divide your expenses into 3 categories. These are your needs, your wants, and your savings and debt. Doing this type of budget will allow you to get your budget started much faster and be able to focus on the bigger picture overall. You can put things like your utilities, your rent, and your car insurance into the needs category. You can put things like eating out and different entertainment expenses into the wants category, and different things like student loans and your personal savings that you're trying to save each and every month goes into the savings and debt category section. The main thing, of course, with any budget is to remember you've got to be real with yourself and you've got to put them into the right spots. Don't mix your wants with your needs. Remember that you don't need Netflix and you don't need Disney Plus. Those are still wants, even though if that's how you choose to view TV, they're not things that you need to survive. You can also do envelope budgeting or cash only budgeting. This is when you only use actual money or in cash to spend on purchases and not using a debit card or credit card. For example, if you had a grocery expense on your budget that was $200 a month, you would simply go to an ATM, you would get $200 from the ATM, you would put it in said envelope, and you would only be able to go and spend that money on groceries, nothing else. If you struggle with overspending, this might be a good budget to get you started, because once you run out of cash, you can convince yourself easier that you're out of money as well. Now, of course, this budget seems pretty strict because you can't use any cards, but remember, as always, if you had an emergency that's an actual emergency, a real emergency, then you could go ahead and use a credit card or get cash out of your account quickly to cover these type of expenses. And most importantly, one of the disadvantages of this budget is that if you misplace the cash, obviously it's gone. Make sure you keep track and organize where you put that cash, and make sure nobody else gets that cash besides you. The other one that you can do is called a zero-based budget, which is giving every dollar a job to do and a position to do on your budget. Some of that money would be for managing a water bill, some of that other money will be for managing a mortgage. Now, if you heard anything about Dave Ramsey or watched any of his videos, you'll probably be familiar with this type of budgeting, since this is his favorite one to do. This budget allows you to micromanage your money essentially like a job, but this is very time consuming to get started with, but is one of the most, in my opinion, the most effective way to get your budget powered up and started. Now, if you're not going to commit the time to put into this one because it is very time consuming, then this might be one of the riskier ones for you to do. Just because if you get off track with this one and you haven't updated or synced any of your expenses, then you're going to fall very far behind and get discouraged and not even want to continue your budget in the first place, because everything is just complex and messy now from the last time you looked at it. One thing you've got to avoid as well is lifestyle inflation and lifestyle creep, which seems to come up once you get a manage on your money. Lifestyle creep will cause you to overinflate your budgets, and your wants start turning into needs, and things that were once luxuries, you convince yourself that you can't live without them. For example, if you just start working a job and all your people in that position are wearing certain name brands of clothes, then you might be enticed to go out to that store and buy clothes just like them, since you're the only one in that position that doesn't wear those type of clothes. It's a form of peer pressure, but at the end of the day, this can cause you to stay in a paycheck to paycheck mindset. You can fight this by sticking to your budget just as you were previously, but you can give yourself small increases over time as you start stockpiling that new money and delegating to exactly where it needs to go to effectively help your life. Now, if you're too lazy to budget, or you just don't have enough time and you want a way to streamline these processes, you can always automate these. Mint is a great way to start off with using these if you've never used these tools before, just because they have so many free things and different options to be able to use to effectively get a budget going. Mint is an overall great budgeting tool because it includes so many different options and features that you can use absolutely for free. You can also use a bill payment tracker and get bill reminders sent to you, get low fund warning, and also alerts for when your bills are actually due, so it can tell you if there's been any unusual spending or any large suspicious transactions going on your accounts as well. It also calculates your average spending by category and makes a budget based off of those spending patterns. You also have the option to further customize what categories are made and specifically tailor them to your needs. Also, as a bonus, you get a free credit score tracker that you can just use to make sure you're on top of your credit while you budget, and who doesn't like free credit score tracking? So remember, in closing, you've got to make a budget that isn't too stressful for you to maintain or too much to handle to the point where you don't want to do it anymore anyway. You've got to find a way to stay motivated throughout your budget to meet your goals and objectives. Be honest and real with yourself and log things even if you're not proud of spending money on, to make sure you get those accounted for and really see see the impact that that has on your finances. Stay motivated and look at the big picture, regardless if you're doing this for a vacation, home renovations, or anything in general for your life. Just remember that as long as you have a goal and you set your mind to it, that you'll be able to have something to look forward to and a reason why you should budget in the first place. Thanks so much for watching, you guys, and if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you get alerted when I post each Friday. Make sure you hit the like button if you learn any content from this video, and make sure you also check me out on Twitter, where I post about stocks and real estate daily.